Without a boy band, Gen Z fangirls had a vacancy open, and Andy Muschietti gave us the weirdest option. Hey sweetheart, welcome to Nothing But Nuance, the show in which I yap about my opinions or something I've researched, and you enable me by being here. Today we are talking about the cast of Andy Muschietti's It, the way that fans reacted to them, and how I truly do believe that this fandom reaction is what put us stuck in the 80s for so long in horror. So, I'd like to make it very clear to you, while I do believe that we owe those boys, especially the ones who played like the OG 4 losers, the original losers, main losers, whatever you refer to those for as, I like calling them the It Boys of the Month, as in, White Boy of the Month from It. I'll get into why I do that in a little bit. We owe them an apology. Just so deeply owe them an apology. But at the same time, this is not a call-out post. I'm not actively shaming anyone currently for things they did as a teenager. This is not some sort of you're canceled sort of thing. And this is not someone outside looking in. I was a really big part of this fandom. I still love those movies. I'm still a fan of a lot of the cast. Jaden Martell is without a doubt my favorite Scream King and my second favorite Scream Monarch ever. I love Sophia Lillis. I think her work is amazing. I realized I was non-binary because I want to look like Wyatt Olaf so bad. I have Finn Wolfhard's newest album on vinyl. It's not up there today, just because I felt Conan Gray was a little more fitting for the way this fandom was. I like these actors. I think Chosen Jacobs is great and also has some of the best red carpet style ever, and I can't wait to see him in more things so we can see him back on carpets. I genuinely loved this cast. This was a big part of my teenage years, and this cast makes me very nostalgic. But I do think there's a very strange reception around them and a very strange way they were treated that truly led to the point that fandom had this whole circle, this whole change. I think RPF was a really big issue in this fandom, and that parasocialness that can't really be fixed. I think this fandom is beautifully nostalgic and also very nuanced and very difficult to look down on while also difficult to look back on. I think we ruined some of those kids' teenage years. I really do believe we did. And we're going to get into how I think this happened and how they were received. And then we're going to get into why I think that affected horror so badly. So if that's something you want to know about, stay with me. So let me start by introducing you to the cast, introducing you to their ages specifically, and then we're going to rotate back to them. So I'm going to have on screen for you what they looked like in It Chapter 1, It Chapter 2, and what they currently look like. While I'm not using movie pictures, I'm using their cast photos. I think you can get the idea. So we're going to start with Jaden Martell, who played Bill Denborough, Wyatt Olaf, who played Stanley Uris, Jack Dylan Grazer, who played Eddie Kaspbrak, Finn Wolfhard, who played Richie Tozer, Sophia Lillis, who played Bev Marsh, Chosen Jacobs, who played Mike Hanlon, and Jeremy Ray Taylor, who played Ben Hanscom. Now, I want you to pay attention to the years I gave you. These kids were 12 to 14 filming this first movie. They were 15 to 18 filming the second. I think actually the oldest of them was 17. I think 18's a huge stretch. But I need you to pay attention to that because we're going to come back to that. We're going to come back to who they are. But first, I'd like to point out that if you paid attention to their birthdays, you probably see the fact that all of these actors are about mid-tier Gen Z. They're under the 90s kids and 2000 itself, which I consider the highest tier of Gen Z, but they're nowhere close to Gen Alpha. They are this mid-tier 2001 to 2004 stretch. I think they're actually 2003. I know that I was born the same year as Olaf and Martell. I don't know if any of the other ones were that year. I just know their birthdays off the top of my head because I've Googled them more than once to remember the name of a movie. All of these actors are mid-tier Gen Z. This movie came out in 2017. These are things we need to focus on, not because of their age right now, though we will circle back to that. This is a focus because we didn't get a boy band for this age group. And I truly do believe the fact that we did not have our version of One Direction, of 5 Seconds of Summer, why don't we? We did not have a huge boy band come out for this age group. And I believe this fandom got treated as bad as it did and as weird as it did because they weren't given a boy band. If you look at the way that the IT fandom was treated, the way people were very parasocial about them, even the way they posted online themselves, if you look at the RPF around them, things of that nature, a lot of this fandom's following emulates those followings of 5 Seconds of Summer, of One Direction, these older boy bands who were mid to late millennials, and then late millennials, early Gen Z. And we had the ability to focus on fandom like that. We were used to that type fandom. We were waiting for ones our age, and then we didn't get them. But we did get the It cast, and that was enough for a lot of people to turn their no signs on for their vacancy signs for their fandoms. We let those boys take the place of what should have been a boy band for that era, because that's what we got. And if you look at the way that this fandom interacted, you can really tell. Now, do I think this was a good thing? No. I don't. I am not going to say this was a good thing, that they were treated like a boy band. I'm not going to say it's their fault that they were treated like a boy band. But I am going to kind of show you some examples of the way they interacted with fans, which... did they get PR training? Like, if anyone can point me in the direction of whoever would have been in charge of getting the ItCast PR training, if anyone can point me to them to find out, did they get PR training? Or did they kind of just assume that since these actors had worked on other projects, that they had the training already? And this is no disrespect to the actors. Again, these were kids. I'm not, any point, any way, any form, going to shame these children. These were children. They were kids. They were middle schoolers. And I need you to remember that now, because a lot of us did not remember that then. And that was a big part of this issue. These were middle schoolers. They were interacting online the way normal middle schoolers were. They were being normal kids. They just had 100,000 teenage girls staring at them while they did it, and that wasn't fair to them. It really wasn't. And I'm not saying they didn't choose their jobs, but they didn't choose to be treated with the reception they got. And I don't think any boy band did either. I think it was just something you accepted happened to you. But you have things like their little short films and the V-Team, which I guess counts as a short film, but it has its own, like, there's almost a V-Team following within this fandom. The way that It fandom has the Shark Puppy following within it. That makes V-Team feel like it was its own separate thing from, like, Selfish Archipelago, or however the hell you pronounce whatever that was Wyatt Olaf posted. But they were just kids. My brother and his friends did stuff like that, you know? It was just this concept of these kids getting to play around and sort of just exist online. You had fellow Wyatt and Finn Skata as Finn and Wyatt's names on Twitter for a long time. I was, like, as a member of that fandom, I was genuinely kind of sad to see their Twitter switch over to, like, Wyatt Olaf official and Finn Wolfhard official, because it was so human in a weird way. It's kind of like those posts that are like celebrities, they're just like you, but it's like you're kind of seeing their mask pulled back when they have like silly names and stuff, and that's parasocial of me. I know that's parasocial of me. That was part of the issue, and I know that's probably why they changed it. But you had those two especially, love them. They were kind of just doing things. Those were the two who had that beef with James Charles, and I think about Brother But Okay every single day. Those two had the weird Oscars posts they made where they posted each other with Happy Oscars Day, and it was like bad photos of each other. There was this sort of like energy about them that boy bands had, where you genuinely believed they were friends. And quite frankly, they are. Like, Jaden Martell was at the premiere for Hell of a Summer, and like a few months before that, Jack Dylan Grazer, Wyatt Olaf, Jaden Martell, and I think Chosen Jacobs were there. And then the kid who played Georgie, whose name I do not know off the top of my head, and I should. It's Jackson something, I'm pretty sure. They were all playing golf together, like, a few months ago. These people are friends. We have multiple pictures of different trips Jaden and Wyatt took up to visit Sophia, which I would be calling them their first names, not in a parasocial way, but I have so many words I have to say, and I don't have a water beside me. But this cast, like, they were friends. You can see pictures of them from this time period, and they're laying on each other. They're sitting in each other's laps. They're holding hands in pictures, and it's completely normal. And I love that they were teenage boys who had people watching them, and they were still comfortable enough to be affectionate with each other. I think that's beautiful. I like that when you watch interviews of them compared to other actors their age, if they are all together, they're manspreading, and they're slouched down in their chairs, and if Sophia looks uncomfortable, Jaden or Wyatt steps in to talk for her. Like, you could tell these kids knew each other. They knew each other, they cared for each other, and I do think that was really a good pro on Musheni's part. We've heard them talk about before their small kid boot camp they went through that kind of made them be friends before they could film, so that you believed their chemistry on screen more, and it somehow worked and didn't work, because, like, a big reason I prefer the 90s cast for the movies is that I think they had better on-screen chemistry, but the off-screen chemistry for Musheni's It truly did skyrocket it. It gave it this boy band fandom that I'm talking about, and I'm gonna get back to who got the worst of it. We're gonna talk about the RPFs of it, and the weird edits, and the way that this fandom gets treated like they don't age. I never actually got into the weird this fandom doesn't age thing, so I'm gonna just throw it here. There's this, like, issue with the It cast that other cast of that age don't have, where people will routinely still act like they are middle schoolers, like with their fan casting or their edits. They have an attachment to what these kids looked like at 14 to the point it's hard for them to comprehend they're all in their 20s. And that's something I meant to bring up, but I got distracted, so I'm just gonna remind you, that's weird, and I don't understand why we did that and why people are still doing that, and we should talk about that, because what? And you need to be a good role model of it, and everything else about them, but I need you to understand that these guys were friends. These guys were genuine friends, and some of them don't hang out in public anymore, and we probably will never know if they still hang out because of this fandom. While yes, their careers probably wouldn't be where they are without the way people reacted to them, that doesn't mean it was a good thing. And I think a big point of that is the RPF, which I am not here to tell you whether I think real person fanfiction is evil, whether I think you're wrong for writing it, if you were wrong for writing it as a kid, if you were wrong for reading it. I mean, I was a kid reading it. Like, I'll admit to that. That's where I'm getting a lot of what we're about to talk about and how we're going to talk about these strange flows between this fandom. It's RPF. A lot of this parasocialness that came from the fact that these boys were just acting like normal teenagers, which they should have been allowed to do. There was no reason that should have harmed them. They deserved to be kids. But we're going to look at how that kind of fled into this giving them, like, boxed character arc sort of thing, and how that affected RPF and made RPF a really big thing in this fandom. Like, I truly do believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, at least Wattpad and Tumblr-wise, I think there's more RPF about this cast than there was fanfictions about these characters. And again, I could be wrong. I've read some great character fanfictions too. I won't deny that. I think characters are fair game. Sue me. But there's always that joke that you're not really famous until there's an RPF fanfiction about you on Wattpad. And if that's true, then all of these kids were really famous by the age of 15. And I'm pointing that out to you because people seemed to forget that they were 15. They were kids. These were little boys. Like, I'm sorry, I know some 15-year-old is going to watch this and be like, I am not a child. You are. You are. They were. They were children. They were children. And I'm reiterating that because I'm going to put on screen for you some things that I did not click but did have mature ratings and what years they came out. And I'm going to put the actors' ages back up here. Are you uncomfortable? I'm uncomfortable. We're going to talk about edits in this section too, because something I've noticed is that any edit of these actors you see, and I'm specifically talking about the 4 I like to refer to as the It Boys of the month. We're talking Wyatt Olaf, Jaden Martell, Jack Dylan Grazer, Finn Wolfhard. They're the main bulk of what is going to be focused on today, because oddly enough, the other 3, maybe they just had less of a fandom and that's why you didn't see it, but when you saw their interactions, they were very normal. And I will say there is some weird stuff about Sophia Lillis on the internet. There is, and there shouldn't be. But those 4 got a real brood of it in a way that was very... It was uncomfortable to me when I was their age seeing it, so it should make you feel a little sick now that we're all adults. I'm not villainizing anyone. I'm just making points. If you feel villainized, maybe it's time to look inward. But the edits that still get posted about these 4 boys will be the most sexual song you have heard in your life. And it won't be adult pictures of them. It won't, like, the youngest of them has been 21 for almost a year. I think, is Wyatt Olaf the youngest, or is Jack Dylan Grazer? I don't know how old Jack Dylan Grazer is off the top of my head. But Wyatt Olaf is July 2003, and I know that because he's 7 months older than me. I will still, to this day, see video clips of him at 15 getting edited to, like, NLE Nasty by Tanashi. Like, that's a little boy. You are using, like, just because he is an adult now does not mean those pictures are not of a little boy. Just because those fan fictions are technically about people who are adults now, they were written when they were little boys. Those were teenage boys. They were children. The fact that they were children then is the issue. I am not coming on here to say this, that, and the third about what you're doing now. But if you are using them as children as your muses, you're nasty. I don't care if you're their age. I don't. I don't care if you're their age in the way I am. I don't care if you were the age that they were in those pictures. They are children in them. And they should not be being used like that. There's a word for what that is. And it doesn't stop being that when they turn 18. It is still that if it was used for that time. But there was this energy around RPF with them. And I'm not getting into the shipping yet. We'll come back to that. I am talking about your ex-readers and your ex-OCs that were being written about them. And I like to refer to it as the Holy Trinity and the Big Three, because these are also concepts that existed in K-pop fanfictions, in our boy band type fanfictions, where you had these 2 separate sort of groups and they followed this set underlaying trope concept. And I have them drawn out for you. We're gonna look at them. But that's part of how this fandom looks so much like a boy band, or like the White Boys of the Month. I like bringing those up a lot. I'm gonna bring them back up. When it came out, that was around the point that, like, Timothée Chalamet was becoming something. People talked about Tom Holland, these, like, big millennial actors. And people were so obsessed with them because they were so hot, apparently. This point sort of drew part of that it factor in, I think, because Jack Dylan Grazer played a younger version of Timothée Chalamet. Wyatt Olaf and Finn Wolfhard have both been compared to Timothée Chalamet and Tom Holland. Like, there's this, the White Boy of the Month thing, as well as the fact that there was a boy band drought for the white guy-esque boy bands. That's what caused a lot of this, I believe, and you can see it when you look at the It RPF. Do you like my stupid drawing I made for you? We're going to talk about the Holy Trinity first because it's less yucky. There was this concept, and I think it's purely because of, like I mentioned earlier, if Sophia was uncomfortable in an interview, you could see Jaden or Wyatt kind of like swoop in and try to take it over without seeming like they were interrupting her. Wyatt did it more during the I'm Not Okay With This era because it was just them in most interviews, but there was that energy that if she looked uncomfortable, she'd kind of look to one of them, and one of them would step in. So, we got the vibe that out of the guys, she was probably closest to those two, and considering they're the ones we see her with the most post-movie, that's probably true. However, we took it and we said, okay, this is the holy trinity of this fandom. Sophia, Wyatt, and Jaden are the besties of all besties. And if they are arguing about something, that's how you know it's a big deal. And that was a huge trope for that fandom. If Wyatt Olaf and Jaden Martell were not on the same side, you knew it was about to be bad. I don't know what that was, but it was I was a big fan of that, actually. I think it's really funny. I think we should have more stupid shit like that in fandoms. Like, why don't characters get that? Why do y'all only use that for RPF? I think I should get to read a fan fiction of the Pit, and when Santos and the two med students start disagreeing on something about one of the older ones, that's when you know it's a big deal. I don't know. I think that's so funny. And then we have the big three, and this is the one that I'm saying boy bands were set like this a lot, because I'm gonna tell you this, and you're gonna be like, if you are around my age and you read 5 Seconds Summer fanfiction, or got kidnapped by One Direction, or whatever you were doing, you're gonna recognize this, because you have your love interest, right? We love them. They're great. They're lovely. They're our main character. That's who the fanfiction's about. And then you come down this side, because they're always going to be friends. These lines are connecting friends, not anything to do with your main character. You come down this side, and you have your brother or your bestie. This is the guy that the main character is, like, super close with. That's either their actual brother, their cousin, someone they worked with on a different project and became a best friend, someone they became best friends with on the It set, something of that nature. And then you come over here, and you have your problem character, or your secondary love interest. And this was a triangle you could see in almost any It fandom fanfiction, no matter what. You were always going to have your main love interest, you were going to have the best friend or brother character, and you were going to have the problem, the secondary love interest, the one purposefully trying to split them up in some way. This was a very recognizable thing to follow in a fanfiction. It's very easy to pick up on them. A lot of the times, if your love interest was Wyatt Olaf or Jaden Martell, the other one took over for the best friend brother role. If you had Finn Wolfhard as the love interest, oftentimes Jack Dylan Grazer was your problem, or your secondary love interest, the one getting in the way. It was this very easy to pick up sort of trope thing throughout these, and obviously they didn't always go about that way. A lot of the times members of the Bowers gang cast would get brought in to fill those roles. It wasn't set in stone. Stranger Things came in sometimes. It was a thing. But you knew you could look forward to your triangle. And you also knew you could look forward to the very strange tropes we gave those boys. I don't know what... I do, in theory, know where it came from. Some of them. I really don't know where Jaden's came from. Maybe I just wasn't a big enough Jaden Martell fan back then. I think I cared more about Wyatt Olaf back in the day. But you had these tropes you'd sort of put onto these characters. Like, Finn was the cool one who made music. And, like, sure, he had Calpurnia, he had the turning around the time of the second movie. Him being someone who was kind of aloof and, like, made music, but also was really funny. Like, that fit him. That fit the way he presented himself in interviews. That fit the projects he was taking. That one made sense. And then you had Wyatt Olaf, who everyone made, like, this huge gamer. And again, he had his YouTube channel where he was, like, unboxing Switches, and his Twitch stream for a while. I think he did that for a long while. Wasn't he still streaming on Twitch, like, around the point I'm Not Okay With This came out? I don't know. I think he was. He did Twitch for a long time. Like, him being the gamer, sure. He also had this, like, both of them had this, like, meme lord thing attached to them for a long time in that fandom. Is that just the way they interacted with each other? Like, is that, like, the brother but okay, why are you on your phone in the theater sort of thing? Or is that, like, did I miss something? Again, I joined this fandom between the two movies. There's gonna be things I missed, but, like, what did I miss? And then you had Jada Martell, who was treated like this really, like, soft-spoken, like, weeaboo. I don't know why anime was such a big thing for Martell fans. Like, did he have a big thing about anime, or did his fans just have a big... I never really understood where that came from, but he was also, like, he was a soft guy. He was the one who, in your fan fictions, you would... in the fan fictions about him, I don't know what it was, but he had his own trope where, like, he'd be trying to be a good partner, and the fandom would be like, and I never loved you, so I don't know what's wrong with you. And, like, why did y'all hate him? What did he do? Like, I genuinely feel like I have missed stuff with this fandom because y'all just had your own inside jokes that I was too gay to be a part of. And then Jack Dylan Grazer had, like, this, like, goofball, sort of. Like, he was kind of the bad boy, but he was so fun and playful and, like, a little queer, and he was kind of fun to mess around with. Like, he was this fun toy to play with. I don't know, I feel like if he was in The Sims, he'd be labeled as a rascal sim by how y'all, realized him in fanfiction. But I also didn't really pay a lot of attention to him. Listen, I'm still a big fan of the other three. I always, like, clung to their stuff. I knew some of their work by the time I watched it, because I didn't watch it until late 2018. So maybe I just paid a lot more attention to them, but my main focus was trying to figure out why I wanted to kiss Sophia Lillis. Because that would be gay! And I wasn't gay! Yeah, you were. But they had these, like, tropes about them that put them in their own little box. And, like, the rest of them sort of just fall where they may. Sometimes Sophia was a girl's girl, sometimes she hated you. Sometimes she'd put Wyatt and Jaden on a pedestal and they could do no wrong. Sometimes she'd tattle on them the first time she could. Sophia was kind of just a toy you could put in whatever situation and wind it up. Same with Chosen Jeremy. You kind of just use them wherever you could. But those four had those very set personalities that followed them through every single person in that fandom. And I do believe a lot of that was just parasocial from the way they'd interact online. But I do find that very odd. I never really, like, obviously other fandoms, again, I keep bringing up Five Sauce because that's one I was a part of. You had, like, Luke and his penguins thing, Michael and his pizza. Like, you had little things you added to them based off of their interview personalities and their YouTube personalities from when they did that. But the It fandom did it to another degree, to the point that, like, I think they forgot those boys were real people. Like, I think it got to a point that Wyatt Olaf was no longer Wyatt Olaf. He was the guy from Wattpad. Finn Wolfhard was not Finn Wolfhard. He was the guy from Wattpad, you know? And even when you look at those fandom, like, fanfictions, you could tell how much of them they were, like, leeching the actors' music taste that they would post. Like, girl, I do not believe you were sitting around listening to Tame Impala and Radiohead. Maybe you are, but your whole profile is Baby Pink, and none of your other fandoms make any sense to line up with that. Like, there was this very, like, again, boy band pick me sort of energy. I've seen recently a lot of girls posting, like, back when I still used TikTok, I've seen them on Instagram, the outfit I wore to the It meet and greet, fully convinced that I could make yada 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 fall in love with me. And there's, like, these set outfit tropes, too. You had, like, the ones who are talking about Finn Wolfhard and Jada Martell. It's always, like, that art ho, like, soft indie. And then if they were talking about Jack Dylan Grazer and Wyatt Olaf, it'd be, like, the Thrasher hoodies and, like, bucket hats or beanies. Like, there was a very set, y'all had very set ideas on who these people were and what they were into. And they got put in these very strange boxes that to the life of me, I couldn't tell you. I don't know where some of those came from. And again, part of it's probably just, it was 2017 to 2020, and that was stuff we were doing back then. But, like, I don't know. I don't understand. I'm very confused. But in terms of those meet and greets, I think that was also a big point of the parasocialness and how we got into the shipping culture. Because these boys would kind of just do whatever you asked them to do. Like, some of them are very normal. You have, like, the face squeeze photos, or, like, the ones where they're holding hands with, like, a foot propped up. You have... A lot of people were picking Jack Dylan Grazer up. Put that boy down. Put him down. He can walk. Put him down. But I think Finn got picked up a lot, too. You had those type of things. You had the engagement photos that you get from, like, Avengers and stuff, but... They'd use the other actors as, like, props. Like, they'd pick which one they wanted to have proposed to them. And then the rest of you go act like this is the craziest thing you've seen in your life. Like, they were props to them. It was very strange. I swear, I cannot find it to save my life. But I'm pretty sure I saw one time where, like, it was supposed to be, like, Jack and Wyatt were fighting each other over these girls. Like, one of them was, like, standing on someone's back or something. It was a very strange photo. And if I can find it, I will show it to you. But I have vivid memory of seeing it. But they had some beautiful cosplays. They'd act along with you if you wanted to recreate, like, a cosplay situation. I know I saw one, they were dressed as Bill, and they had the other guys stand around them with the yellow coat. Like, they were all really upset about it. Y'all had a great time. They kind of would do whatever you asked, and I think that's fun. I really think they were having a great time at that point. Those photos ended up getting manipulated to become ship photos. And they were ship photos for two very specific ships. You're gonna know them before I say them. You're going to. If you were in here at all, you're gonna know Giant and Fack. And those are the worst ship names anyone could have given them. They had cool last names. Giant and Fack. Ugh. But there was this need to have ships in the cast. I don't know why. If you look back at it, actually during It Chapter 1, like, when it first came out before we were really getting a lot of interviews and a lot of this behind the scenes stuff, there were different ships in the It fandom than there were by It Chapter 2. I mean, Reddy was always a big deal. I think Fact just kind of fueled more of that going in. But Mike Hanlon was considered a bigger point of shipping until y'all started shipping Jaden and Wyatt. And then Stanlin took over that point that Stanlin and Hanlon were taking up. And I think that's very strange that y'all went from shipping both of them with Mike to shipping them with each other, because you were shipping the actors. And don't get me wrong, I think Jack Dylan Grazer and Finn Wolfhard had great chemistry in interviews. They were very clearly good friends. Same with Wyatt Oleff and Jaden Martell. I mean, those two are still kind of inseparable. I think I just saw a post that, like, right after Wyatt deleted everything off his Instagram, Jaden posted him, the only time you could see the man. Like, they care about each other very genuinely. And it's so odd that y'all decided that meant they had to kiss. Why can't they just love each other? Why can't they just be friends who care? You weirdos. But they did. They had this strange energy about them, and those ships in real life that there's still fanfiction up for, by the way. Like, I'll put there's some strange manipulations of their photos, too. Like, sometimes I can't tell what's real and what isn't, because y'all just make shit. But that shipping of them kind of turned into shipping of their characters, which was something we'd see come back up in the Umbrella Academy fandom. Because that fandom was all, do not ship the Hargreaves together, they are siblings, until y'all started shipping Dante and Blake from the young cast. And then for some reason, Klaus and Diego became a ship. Like, this concept of we're gonna ship the actors and then ship the characters wasn't completely new, but I think on that age level, the It fandom had a lot to do with that. And I don't think I like that. Why are we shipping real people? But also, why does a fandom that I'm a part of have to have that type of reputation? Couldn't y'all have done that from somewhere weird? Why did you have to do it from here? My God. But I do believe that all of these different points, all of the, again, V-Team handshake that people were learning to do at cons, and there was a lot of genuine love for these actors and for their chemistry. And all of that boils back down to the way this movie was made, and I do think that all of that put together is what led to the point of us getting stuck in the 80s. I think that reception and that care, harassment of the actors is what pushed that movie so hard, because don't get me wrong, It Chapter 1 did beautifully in theaters. But it did real beautifully in Blu-ray sales. It's done real beautifully in streaming to this day. And I think a lot of that is the fact that teenage girls finally saw actors their own age, that were playing characters their own age they could cling on to. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I live in this really weird realm when it comes to child actors and teenage actors, but I can tell you, when I was 14, seeing a cast fully made up of 14 and 15-year-olds, it was really comforting. I liked watching their interviews. I will still go back and watch them sometimes when I'm, like, needing a comfort watch and don't want to sit through a movie. That cast liked each other. Or at least if they didn't, they were a lot better at hiding it than, like, the Stranger Things cast was in their season 1, or the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina cast, or even to a point that I am not okay with this cast. Like, actors are oftentimes not best friends. They're not gonna be. They don't view each other as a family the way they tell us they do. It's part of their contract that they have to be nice to each other, especially if it's Netflix. They have to act like they get along. That's why you see actors start unfollowing people about a year after a project when the press has died down and the award seasons are over. Actors aren't going to be friends. They're coworkers. Like, are you friends with all of your coworkers? I don't think so. I'm not. I'm surely not. And that's okay. They don't have to be best friends, but there was something about the It cast that it was genuinely believable that these 7 kids were best friends. I mean, you have pictures of them with each other's siblings, and you have, again, the V-Team and the Selfish Archipelago, or however you say that. How do you say that? You have those. You have the fact that to this day you can see Chosen Jacobs and Martell and Olaf hanging out, or Jack Dylan Grazer went to a tattoo appointment for Jada Martell with him, or those two visiting Sophia in New York. You have the Stranger Things premiere where the It Boys of the Month and Sophia all reunited. You had the Hell of a Summer premiere where Jaden was there. Like, they like each other. They still interact, at least on some level. I'm sure you could probably see their phone and they probably still have that group chat going. Or at least a group chat with some people taken out going. I don't know. You have, like, they care about each other. I very vividly remember one year Tumblr lost their shit, being terrified that Wyatt Olaf and Jada Martell weren't friends anymore, because Olaf didn't wish him a happy birthday on Instagram. Olaf hadn't posted in like 4 months. What was he gonna say? Hey, I'm back just to tell a guy I called this morning, happy birthday, goodbye. Like, y'all are too parasocial about them. These guys have a phone. They do, they can call. Like, y'all were a little too obsessed with that, but this energy that they were really friends, that you could cling on to, and you can see, like, the comfort in their interviews, or how they mess with each other. Again, you have that Tumblr thing, but, like, the point where all of the cast just went on this whole tangent in an interview, and I don't remember what interview it is, but I'll find it to show you, where all 6 of them are just yapping about scales.
So, because I haven't talked to him yet, so I'll bring it up.
Please, bring it up.
So have you guys seen Scales?
Yes.
Okay, all right, I'm going to do it. Have you guys ever seen the movie Scales?
Oh, stop! What are you doing?
They said...
Which, I have never seen Scales. I don't plan to, but there is a Letterboxd review of it that says that's the reason that Jack Dylan Grazer started doing drugs. We're gonna come back to that after what I'm about to say, but like... I need to watch it because of that, because how bad was it? It can't be that bad, right? But you have that energy, and you have that chemistry on screen because of it. In this fandom, I don't actually think a lot of you like that movie. I really don't. If you read their fanfictions, they go so far away from the plot. They're leaving. They don't want to be a part of that. What do you mean? No, there wasn't a clown. Bill was just gay. That was the issue. Like, all the way off in Timbuktu with it. But I think that's why this movie did so well. Because I hear it all the time that we're stuck in the 80s because of Stranger Things. And I'm disagreeing with you, purely because It Chapter 1 was the 13th highest grossing Warner Bros. Movie of 2017. Which doesn't sound like a lot. Yes, Stranger Things was one of the biggest shows of Netflix. But at that point, they were just trying to beat out Orange is the New Black. There were a lot less Netflix originals. They weren't as convoluted. There wasn't as many different superhero plots on top of supernatural plots, on horror plots, on this, that, and the third, all layering over each other like there are now. And I honestly don't know if Stranger Things would have gotten where it was without it barely having competition. And I'm not going to say Stranger Things did not help it. I do think the fact that Finn Wolfhard had a fandom that would follow him somewhere helped. I think that Book of Henry coming out around the time it did helped. I do believe actors having a following helps their movies do well. But not only is this the 13th highest Warner Bros. Movie of 2017, this is the highest grossing Stephen King adaptation and horror movie ever. Here, 7-8 years later, It Chapter 1 is still the number one highest grossing horror movie. No one's beaten her out yet. And I checked that last night. The most recent article was 2 months ago. No one has beat it in terms of how famous it was, how much money it's made. Those fandoms, you can scroll through their Tumblr tags and their Instagram tags for hours, finding edits and fan art and fan fiction. The AO3 category of it goes on for days. The Wattpads of it go on for days. There was this huge attachment to these movies. But I don't think it was because of the characters. A lot of that love was for the cast. A lot of that love came from how much people cared about the actors. The following of the actors only happens if people like them. Like, it wouldn't have meant anything that they were big names if they were big names because people didn't like them. People clung to these movies so hard because of the way this cast interacted, because of the chemistry they had on screen. Like, the love for these movies wasn't that they were so scary or that they'd love the nostalgia of it. Most of that fandom was teenagers. Yes, you did have those people coming back because it was a remake. You had the fans of the book. But a lot of that fandom didn't know it. The amount of people I've talked to who genuinely, when they got to It Chapter 2 and saw Stan die, almost left because they didn't know that would happen, is crazy. This was a whole new fandom. These weren't just people coming back. These weren't just book fans. This was people who were brand new to horror, who were brand new to Stephen King coming in and seeing this cast and sticking with it and finding out more. People loved these actors, and I think it's beautiful. I think that's a really cool thing, but I think that's why we're so stuck, is I don't think a lot of people have clicked that the reason young people were clinging to this so hard, the reason they were so obsessed with it, was the chemistry between the actors. A lot of those cheaper movies or those blockbusters who are just trying to make money, who are clinging to the 80s, they're missing the fact that it, and even Stranger Things to that level, had a cast of children who loved each other, who cared about each other, who would put through hell for each other. Just keep each other safe. The appeal of those movies was never, oh, it's scary in the 80s. And that's why we're stuck there, is no one's able to do as good as it did. And I don't think anyone ever will. I'm gonna look you dead in the face right now and tell you that if I had someone come to me right now and be like, hey, they're making a new horror movie, and it has the whole cast of it, the Bowers Gang, the Losers Club, the adults, Bill Skarsgård, everyone's back. I would look you dead in your face and tell you it's not going to do as well. Yes, their chemistry was huge, but their age was a big part of it. That's why you see movies like The Black Phone doing so well, even though they leave the 80s. That one's in, what, the 70s? Something like that. You're still getting these kids who are working together and care about each other. It's not the time period, and I think that's hard for a lot of people to understand, is that nostalgia is coming from the way characters care about each other, and not from the era. Yes, of course, things like Y2K, a lot of it fuels on nostalgia. A lot of it fueled on nostalgia, like the arcade and this, that, and the third. Stranger Things definitely is clinging to the 80s theme. But that's because Stranger Things, the 80s theme, had a point. Like, they needed a point that D&D was huge. I'm sorry, Stranger Things couldn't work in any other timeline. But it could have. It has. In the original, it's the 50s. It is a story that works in multiple timelines, even if you have to change things. Because there's this loving care for each other throughout it. And that's really hard for people to comprehend. And I find that very strange. And don't get me wrong, that also has its downsides. You definitely saw people react to those boys in a very nasty way. Again, mainly Finn Wolfhard. He got such a brood of it. Like, if he ever leaves the spotlight, I won't be shocked. Because he had grown women tweeting some of the most vile things at him. And maybe you don't think it's that vile until you think about the fact he was 14. He was a little boy. He was a middle schooler. You had this need for them to be role models. And like, I don't know about you, but I was not looking at Ben from Algebra to be my role model. This Fandom was their age. It was a movie that, while it was rated R, was targeted towards kids their own age. None of these actors could see their own movie without a parent. I need that to be very clear. Jack Dylan Grazer could not see it without his mother there when y'all tore him to shreds for smoking. A public high school would have killed you. Like, almost everyone I knew in middle and high school was smoking. That was just average for his age. It was not his job or anyone else in that cast's job to be a role model. It was their job to be kids. It was the adult cast's job, Bill Skarsgård's job, Andy Muschie's job, to be role models, sure. No one is looking to a guy who could be sitting beside them in algebra to be a role model. They're looking for that guy to see if he's cool. That's what was happening with them. Yeah, maybe you are sad your kid found an actor who was smoking cool. But it wasn't that actor's job to be their role model. If they could be a classmate, they are not a role model. And people who got really mad at Jack Dylan Grazer, I would like a time machine. And I would like to show you that video of Jack, Jaden, and Wyatt in the desert, where Jaden and Wyatt are clearly so high. I'd like to show you that picture of Jaden Martell rolling a blunt on a guitar case. I would like to show you that video where Finn Wolfhard is clearly high while hanging out with some other dudes in a podcast. Like, they were teenage boys. They're guys in their 20s now. They're gonna smoke. Almost every guy I knew who looked like that smoked. No one is shocked. Some of them were just better at hiding it. I like to believe that they're all sitting around, like, on FaceTime, teasing him for that while they're all high. Like, that was such a dumb era. Wasn't it a vape, too? Like, he wasn't even actually smoking. It was like a vape or something. I don't remember. I could be confusing multiple different child stars who got in trouble for smoking, but, like, he was a teenager. It was gonna happen. they were gonna be drinking and smoking and experimenting with being rebellious, especially when they were going through what you bitches were putting them through. None of that was shocking or surprising. These guys were not your role models. They were not your friends. They were some random teenagers who managed to get a following. They were teenagers who were trying to still be themselves while online. You shouldn't have been policing them for smoking and swearing and doing shit that your classmates were doing. A public high school would kill y'all. Y'all would die. That's not to say I don't think anyone in this cast has had correct scrutiny for things they've done or been alleged to do. I'm not saying any of them were perfect. What I am saying is y'all were way too hard on them and way too sexual about them. And, like, again, there are lines and there are different lines that did or didn't get crossed, but at the end of the day, no 14-year-old should have 30-year-olds tweeting at them to hit them up when they're 18. No 14-year-old should be getting yelled at that they should be a role model to other 14-year-olds. That's not their job. Role models are someone older. It was not his job. Like, he should have dealt with the sexualization he felt. I shouldn't have had to see videos of teenage boys asking people to stop calling them daddy.
Who's my fan? You're great, but please stop calling me daddy.
Yeah.
This is getting a little weird.
None of them deserve that. And I'm sure a lot of us, as we've looked back, we're like, wow, what the fuck is wrong with us? I'm sure a lot of the things that I'm going to go try to find to show you examples, I'm sure by the time I go to find them, they're going to be gone. Because we've all grown up. We're all adults now. But that doesn't mean that erasing it makes it better. Those boys are owed an apology. And I would personally like to be the first to say sorry for what they went through. I will forever think about that fandom in the most strange, nostalgic, nausea way. Because they didn't deserve that. They didn't. They were teenage boys. They were little. Like, I look back at it, chapter 1, and they're babies. They are little boys. I'm like, I want to reach through and pinch their cheeks, you know? Like, they're so small. And then they got treated like that. And I know to us, they looked cool. They looked hot. They were our age. But looking back, it's nauseating to think about how they were treated. I don't know, I've gotten really aggressive towards the end of this video, and I do apologize for that, but I think it needs to be our focus on realizing how fucked up that fandom was, and making sure the next Losers Club doesn't deal with that. The next party, the next Fright Club, whatever, doesn't deal with that. Because ew. Like, to the deepest part of my soul, I'm sorry, ew. And I know, I've openly admitted, I was there. I was not writing RPF, I was reading it though. I was part of the problem. But sometimes you have to look back and be like, ew, what the fuck? What was wrong with me? And I think this is one of those biggest points where we have to be able to look back and say, ew. And say that we shouldn't have done that, and that shouldn't have been allowed to happen. And I'm not saying there weren't people saying it back then, but there should have been more. There should have been more people willing to look inward, because the thing is, if someone tells you what you're doing is predatory and it makes you upset, it probably is. Call-outs only work if they're true. That being said, thank you for listening to me. Despite everything I just said, will be talking about It Chapter 1 and It Chapter 2 again later this month, so if you want to come hang out for that, I'll see you there. It'll be the 3rd and 4th Tuesday of this month. You can skip next month, or next week, that's The Sims. But if you want to come back and talk more about these movies and the actual movies that led to what we're talking about now, I'll see you then. Otherwise, thank you for listening to me, baby. You have a good one. Bye-bye.
Game time.